Jen. I'm Justin Bibb, and I'm so happy. I'm excited to be here with many friends and allies and partners in the fight for more affordable and equitable public transit in this city. I served on the board of RTA for nearly 3 years and work hand in hand with Chris and others in this room to fight for equity in our transit system. And as mayor, I'm looking forward to working with you to make sure we can have higher frequency transit in our city, making sure we can finally get fare evasion policy passed inside City Council. And happy to see that today the RTA police chief announced a pilot program for an ambassador program, which I think is a good step in the right direction. So looking forward to the discussion. I'm looking forward to getting your questions. Thanks so much.
Thank you. My name is Kevin Kelly. I am the president of Cleveland City Council, and I'm running for mayor of the city of Cleveland. When you look at what are the real vexing problems of our community, of course safety is number one, and then we can keep going down the list. But if we talk about the fact that we are in a situation right now where we are trying to recover from a pandemic, both from a public health perspective and also from an economic perspective, we can't ignore the role that transportation plays in getting people back to work. And we cannot ignore the role that public transportation plays in the lives of lower income people, which rely more on public transportation for that ability to get to work, to do the jobs that are needing people right now. I absolutely do not believe those that say that the labor challenges shortage we have right now are because of too generous unemployment. I've never heard anybody that's on unemployment say that. I think people have rearranged their lives with daycare, and transportation is a key component to really getting our community back to work. That's why public transportation is so important. Now, Greater Cleveland RTA has not succeeded in meeting our needs. Now, we can talk a lot about where the failure lies. We can talk a lot about the failure at the state level to fund local transportation, which is real. But the question is, we have to deal with reality that's probably not going to change. So the questions now are, what can we do as a community to improve transportation so that people can get to the grocery store, that people can get to jobs, so that the public transportation that people rely on can be that connector that connects people, gets people to work, gets people to see their loved one, gets people to the grocery store, and meets their basic needs.
Thank you. Okay, you've heard from both of the candidates. Now, I've got 5 questions here that CBT has designed. When we get done with these, and each of the candidates will have a minute to answer, then we'll open it up to questions from the floor, and I'll give those guidelines once we get to that point. First question, and I'll start this time with Kevin Kelly. People take public transit when it's frequent, fast, reliable, safe, clean, and comfortable. The next-gen RTA bus system redesign improved on this, but there is still much to be done. In your opinion, what steps does Cleveland need to take to close any of those service gaps?
So we have to look at who has the authority to do what, and what can the city of Cleveland do to deal with service gaps. The most important thing we do is appoint members to the board of RTA, but the challenges are tremendous. Some of the service gaps that we need to look at, sometimes we need to look beyond Greater Cleveland RTA. We need to look at our senior transportation connection. We need to look at other transportation options that are available, because while the rerouting was somewhat helpful, if you look at fares other than day passes, fares are continuing to go up, and as you described, the death spiral, is going to be very difficult to stop, because if you raise fares and routes change, you're going to get less ridership. Less ridership is less revenue, and just not a formula for success. So I think what we have to do, as the mayor of the city of Cleveland, the most important thing you can do is appoint board members that have creative solutions for these, that are going to show up and roll their sleeves up and get the job done. And again, we have to start thinking about how do we look beyond just Greater Cleveland RTA to solve this problem, because we've tried that before and it's not getting us where we need to be.
Justin, do you want me to repeat the question?
No, I got it. I fundamentally believe in the power of what RTA can achieve with the right leadership and right board in place. I believe India Birdsong was a fantastic choice to be the next CEO of RTA. She's made some great strides in the right direction. We brought in Jared Walker, a national expert on bus and transit policy globally, and he gave RTA leadership and the board some hard choices to make given the fiscal challenges that the agency was facing. And I think we did the best we could as an agency to make sure we still had high-frequency buses where we have a large density of our population. Now, long-term, the key operative question is, how do we source additional revenue to have more frequency, not just across Cleveland, but across the region to support this issue? We should be doing everything we can to lobby our governor and state legislature to have more investments in public transit at the local level. I also think we've been missing opportunity, particularly before this pandemic, to finally have smart parking meters, and we actually get smart parking meters in Cleveland and really be a modern city and not be stuck in the 1990s. That could be, I think, a potential additional revenue source we could use to better source transit at the local level. Now, third, this is a long-term challenge we have to kind of discuss and explore, but is there an option where we could get the city, the county, GCP, and other key stakeholders around the table to explore an additional revenue source locally, whether it be a levy, to fully fund local transit? Because I believe this is an investment long-term to the economic competitiveness, not just the city, but the entire region at large.
Okay, thank you, Justin. A reminder for candidates.
Sorry. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. We're walking out on transit.
Next question. About 25% of the Cleveland households have no access to a car and are dependent on transit, biking, and walking. Have you ever been car-free? This is for both of you. How will you advance a car-free living in Cleveland, and how will you keep it functional year-round?
I have been car-free, and it's challenging. It's not easy to be car-free. I respect everybody that is car-free, just because it is, for the needs of a person in my position. I'm a married father of 5, and I have to get kids from A to B, and it is not easy. The challenges of being car-free, relying entirely on public transportation. The bike option is great, but it's not great in January, and it is something that continues to challenge. But I think that when we look at what is a solution, being able to realize the challenge of not relying on a car, acknowledging that 25% of people do not have access to a car, and understanding that we want all those 25% of people that do not have cars to be active members of the workforce. Therein lies the challenge. How do we make sure that we are allowing them to participate in our community?
I've actually been car-free for about a month now, and so I'm getting some real-world experience in what it means to be car-free in Cleveland. When I went to college in D.C., I didn't have a car, and when I lived in New York and London, I didn't have a car as well. But all those cities had pretty high-frequency access to public mass transit, which made it very easy for me not to have a car. There's some things we can do in Cleveland to make it easier. As I said before, more high-frequency transit at the local level, more protected bike lanes all across this city to make sure that we prioritize pedestrians over cars. And then thirdly, more investments in transit-oriented development to address those first-mile, last-mile solutions that many of our residents have a challenge with day in and day out.
Okay, thank you, Justin. Okay, this next question, we'll start this time with Justin. Fare evasion is currently a 4th-degree criminal misdemeanor, punishable by up to 30 days in jail and a $250 fine. Parking tickets are treated as civil offenses, not criminal offenses, with a small fee and no jail time. As mayor, will you decriminalize fare evasion in the city of Cleveland?
Yes. Happy to support the legislation that I know Cleveland's Public Transit has worked on with Councilman Kerry McCormick. I believe that's a good step in the right direction. And let's be real about this. We are the poorest big city in America. And if you're a person of color in the city and you get, a fare violation and a fare ticket on RTA, many folks can't afford that fine. So what happens? They get caught up in court and they get stuck at a jail that is not protecting their constitutional rights. And so this is about social justice and racial justice, and it's important we get this right in the city of Cleveland.
Yes, I support it, and we have to, make sure that how we are treating these offenses, we need to understand why it's being committed, and do we really are we making things better or worse by imposing a criminal penalty? Now, there obviously needs to be some requirements in terms of people paying, but again, this is not something that the city of Cleveland has chosen to enforce. When we got in, when there was the issue of the jail and who pays, we told people that we aren't going to pay the per diem rate for somebody the RTA has found fair jumping. It's not a city of Cleveland issue. That's not something that our division of police pursue, and it's not something that they're going to continue to pursue while I am mayor. We're not looking to take a bad situation and make it worse. We are looking to take a bad situation and make it better. So we're going to decriminalize to the extent possible that issue of fair evasion.
Okay, thank you. The next question, I'll start this time with Kevin. And you both kind of addressed this already, so I'll abbreviate it a little bit. Is that we do have some regular riders, transit riders, on the current RTA board, including Reverend Lucas, the chair, and the newest member, Roberto D'Arte. And Clevelanders for Public Transit in particular believes it's important that these voices, riders' voices, besides the other expertise that they bring to the table, are represented and would like to see more people with a rider background appointed to the board. The City of Cleveland appoints 4 members to the 10-member board. Will you commit to appointing more riders, people with rider backgrounds, current riders, to the GCRTA board? And what will be your process for selecting those appointees?
Start. Yes. It starts with engaging with organizations like Cleveland for Public Transit and other grassroots organizations to make sure we have the right talent, the right professional experience, but also what matters so much more, I think, is the right lived experience to make sure we have the right leadership in place on that board.
Yes. We need to make sure that the people that are making decisions understand the decisions that are being made. Just like when the mayor makes appointments to the school board, they look to make sure that they are a Cleveland resident, that they are a parent, that they have a connection to the district. We need to make sure, just as we may have set those criteria for it, that riders have an absolute voice when important decisions are being made. You know, how can we talk about raising fares on riders without having riders that are being affected at the table? How can we talk about changing routes or condensing routes or whatever without the people that are being affected? I think that's critical. I think too often we have we put people in those positions that don't have any connection to the decisions that are being made, and it ends up in bad decisions. I mean, we have to have a board that represents the ridership, the people that are actually using the service.
Okay, thank you. Question. Okay, the last question. We'll start again this with Kevin. RTA's police has twice as many officers as the first transit system with half the ridership. Given that RTA spends $14 million per year on its transit force and has hiked fares multiple times over the years only to generate less than $1 million each time with the fare increase, would your GCRTA board appointments call for an independent audit and time study of GCRTA Transit Police Department to see if our limited taxpayer resources can be better allocated? Now, keep this in mind with also the developments today of the Civilian Review Board proposal for transit police with GCRTA, and also the Transit Ambassadors Program, which would be in lieu of armed uniformed officers doing fare enforcement. Certainly the second one has been a key element of the CPT platform.
I think I still remember the question.
Okay.
And, to which I'll say yes. I'm not sure why this hasn't happened already. When you look at the numerous police departments that we have in the city of Cleveland, in addition to the Cleveland Division of Police, we have the RTA Police, we have the Cleveland Clinic Police, we have University Circle Police, the Greater Cleveland RTA Police. Why are we spending so much money and so many resources on policing while we are raising rates? I think this is something that should have been done a long time ago. I don't know why it took this long to raise the question. But again, this is something that needs to be done immediately. And then let me get back to the question of ridership and who's on the board. Who's making these decisions? Who are these leaders that are not hearing from people that are spending this money on a police force to police people that arrive are just trying to get to work, or trying to get to the grocery store, or trying to live their lives. We need to do that immediately, so, yes, thank you.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I was frustrated that during my time on the board, I didn't see enough action from our leadership and management to really execute some of the recommendations that we had another audit done before we brought in our new CEO. I believe, however, that the Transit Ambassador Program is a fantastic step in the right direction. And if we can get some real movement there, we'll probably see some change on that aspect.
All right, thank you. Well, that's it for the questions that CPT prepared, and we do have some time. Both of the candidates have other appointments this evening, so we're going to try to keep this quick. And we do have the opportunity for questions from you. I've got the microphone here. If people can, they can come forward. I can try to get it to them. What I do ask is that you keep it to a question. Don't want statements, don't want manifestos, don't want, your past experiences and that sort of thing. Simple questions. Yeah, I understand that. You'll be learning that at City Council soon.
Trust me, I know it.
So please, please respect their time and that sort of thing, and also the audience, so we can get in as many questions as possible. And we'll start with Brian.
Oh, I can come closer.
I'm Brian, now I'm a writer, and I'm the guy that's out there in January on the bike. But given the news from JCRTA regarding their transit police, I just can't but help but ask the question of, if you both are in support of that, are you also in support of the issue 24 question regarding the Cleveland Division of Police? I know that's slightly off topic, but as you said, we have too many police forces here, and civilian review is a good thing. So.
Right, well, it's a little bit off topic, but if we can answer. I heard you both discussed it a lot last time.
It's not off topic, because nothing else we do is gonna matter if we do not get the level of violent crime down in our communities. And I am against issue 24 because it would make our communities less safe. It would lead to less accountability. It would lead to an unelected board of bureaucrats who have no training in policing, making decisions on policing. And again, they would have millions of dollars at their discretion. This would not make our community safer. It would not make the community more, it would not lead to more accountability. In fact, it would lead to less accountability, because this board would then get politicked for every discipline decision that was being made in the Division of Police. When something comes forth, and I would just ask everybody here to really reflect on this for a minute. When you change the charter of the City of Cleveland, that is not a small deal. Every detail needs to be right, because it is so important. And I would say, let me real quick, because it's important. We need to make sure that this is going to make our community less safe. If you look at it, that it overrides collective bargaining agreements. That is, I don't believe that to be legal, let alone wise or prudent. But again, who wants to make these decisions? I believe that the mayor, I know how to get rid of the mayor, I know how to get rid of a chief of police, I don't know how to get rid of one of these unelected bureaucrats. And they will have, in a 10-year period, they will have the authority to spend over $45 million.
That's not true.
It absolutely is true. How much do you think it'll cost? Tell me, how much do you think it'll cost?
Less than 2%.
How much is the police budget?
Can I answer the question?
Please.
So let me say this. This is the difference here, right? I believe you can have effective public safety and good law enforcement, but you can't get that without trust between residents and police.
Amen.
And accountability matters.
True that.
We spent nearly $10 million over the last decade trying to settle police misconduct claims. Over $30 million over the last decade trying to settle police misconduct claims. If you read the charter amendment, the mayor, with council approval, appoints 13 members to this commission, and those commission members must reflect the community, folks that have been victimized by police, but also law enforcement and experts in the legal community.
That's right.
So it's a broad representation of having more voices around the table. I'm a son of a cop. This is not anti-policing.
My daughter won.
This is about more fairness and more equal justice under the law. And the way you get rid of a mayor, don't vote for him in 4 years, or you do a recall. This commission can't get rid of the mayor.
Hello.
That's fairy tale.
Can't get rid of the mayor, but This $30
By the way,
million
it also does not undermine collective bargaining, by the way.
It states it in the text of the amendment. I don't know if you read it.
I have read it.
But I would also suggest that of the 30 million that this gentleman keeps citing, please do a Google search. Each of those events happened pre-consent decree. Ask the question, how many dollars have resulted from lawsuits after the consent decree? It is not 30 million. There is a very small number of settlements that have come out. This states in the text of the amendment that this amendment will override, will basically trump any other charter section, and it'll trump a collective bargaining agreement. Read the text in front of you. This is dangerous to the people of the city of Cleveland, and I
Being
would...
killed by police is dangerous, but
That's
Yeah,
right.
And how many times has that happened since the consent decree? How many use of force cases have gone down since then? The Office of Professional Standards has cleared the docket, all of the cases that were pending. If you look at what has happened since the consent decree, there is a path to reform, there's a path to accountability that we're on. This would take us to less accountable. This would put us unelected group of bureaucrats in charge of very sensitive police decisions.
Give you the last.
no, it's fine.
Okay.
He said enough. Thanks.
All right.
I got more.
We've got more questions. What I'll ask is that
Sorry, Brian.
one of the things that we're trying to do is, in front of the candidates, is we want to be able to elevate transit as an issue and stuff. So even though we know that 24 is going to be a big one, we also want transit to be seen as important. I'll go to Justine.
Yeah, my question is actually for both of you. It's regarding funding of transit. Justin, Ben, you mentioned the parking meter, smart parking meters as a source of funding. I'm interested to know right now what the funding is used for now for parking meters and how that would be transferred to transit. And for Kevin Kelly, I know you also mentioned increasing funding. I guess for both of you, I'd like to know a little more specifically your plan to increase funding beyond, what was mentioned with the parking, possible parking. And again, does the mayor have the power to do that? Or is it more influential?
So I would say a couple things. Right now, we use parking revenue collection to fund the city, right? But I believe because we haven't had smart parking meters, we missed out on future revenue opportunities that we could invest in to have high quality basic city services. And if we could tap into that revenue base a bit more, that additional revenue we would accrue based on optimizing smart parking meters could potentially be used to better invest locally in public transit in Cleveland. That's my viewpoint.
My viewpoint is this. Parking revenue goes to the general fund. The general fund is what the city relies on for police service, for fire service, for EMS, for parks, for garbage collection, for snow plowing. You can't just say I found a new revenue source and we're gonna give it to RTA. It just doesn't work that way. That would take a vote of council, it would take the mayor, and really the question is, when you get into that, would that really result in a large scale lowering of fares? When something sounds nice, it's like, no, let's scrutinize how this happened. It doesn't happen that way. The parking revenues, and even if they were to go up with smart parking, they wouldn't go up enough to make a demonstrable difference in fares or ridership. It would go up a bit, it would help the general fund, and it should. But that's not the solution. I mean, the solution really lies at the state level. The solution really lies at making sure that we are running as efficient a shop as possible and expanding non-Greater Cleveland RTA services.
Can I respond to that? This is why we don't get any movement on any of these issues in Cleveland, right? We don't want to explore innovative ideas that could try to solve some of these local pain points. In other cities across the country, they tapped into maximizing that revenue by having smart parking meters, because people are using the meters more because it's frictionless and easier. And with that additional revenue, we could say we want to prioritize investments in local transit. Now, will that money go to RTA directly? We don't know yet, right? But it's a source to look at to explore this in a more creative way locally in Cleveland.
The general fund of the city of Cleveland, we are prohibited from giving our assets away.
How are we giving an asset?
We are prohibited from giving our assets away. We can't just raise money for something else. Now, we could have, theoretically, council could pass an ordinance to divert a certain portion of parking taxes, but why, or excuse me, meter fees, but why there? That is not going to move the needle. That's not going to really lead to lower fares and more routes. It's just not. I mean, it's something you can say to get through a conversation, but is that the answer? Not even close.
All right, next question?
Mr. Kelly, I've heard a lot tonight from you. Yes, I've seen this issue. Yes, it's been an issue. You've been a council member since 2005. How can we listen to you tonight and believe that you are going to actually affect changes, Mayor? And on the same side, or the opposite side of the coin, Mr. Bibb, I mean, do you have the requisite experience to make public transit better in Cleveland as Mayor?
Thank you.
Thank you. I have been a member of Cleveland City Council since 2005, and I am very proud of my record of accomplishment. The things that I have accomplished are things that matter to the residents of the state of Cleveland. I spearheaded and pushed forth right to counsel for indigent defendants. I funded that, so people who are being evicted, I did that. If you look at First Year Cleveland, that was born in the conference room of Cleveland City Hall, of Cleveland City Council. That was bringing people together. That was building coalitions. The same with raising the public health crisis. The same with, let's say, Cleveland. The same with crafting our language access plan. It's an easy talking point, but if you look at the record, it's different. This gentleman was actually on the board of Greater Cleveland RTA, and when he did show up, he didn't get the job done. That's what we need to look at going forward. I've missed 2 meetings in 16 years on Cleveland City Council, and I have a record of accomplishment that I'm proud of. And if you look at what has happened from the legislative body, I would say the biggest, boldest ideas that have pushed the city of Cleveland forward have come out of the council.
Let me tell you what I got done in nearly 3 years as a board member of RTA. Number one, I worked with our leadership to live stream board meetings before this pandemic, so our riders knew what was going on at the height of COVID-19. Number two, I led an effort to make sure we put body cams of all of our transit police. Number three, I started an ad hoc technology innovation committee that supported putting Wi-Fi on every bus and train inside our agency. And then, as well as this, I worked with India Birdsong to bring the first ever Chief Innovation Officer inside RTA that moved most of our data to the cloud. We got laptops to our RTA employees so they could work during this pandemic, work remotely. That's in just almost 3 years. I can get it done as the next mayor of Cleveland.
Brian?
Diane?
As becoming our next mayor, especially for transportation, I am a street team leader of RTA 25 Connect. Every year we work together. What I'm about to ask both of you guys that's running for mayor of Cleveland, how would you make our bus shelters safe for residents, and also the RTA when you catch the trains to go to downtown or wherever you're going? How would you guys do that? Thank you.
Yes, I think that what you just described is an appropriate use of RTA police to make sure that those shelters are safe. We need to make sure that they're clean. We need to make sure they're safe. We need to make sure they are bright. And there is a RTA shelter that is right outside my ward office, and I have frequent interaction with the RTA police, and they do respond quickly. We do keep a good eye on it. We do have cameras on it. But this has to be, every shelter needs to be clean, it needs to be safe, it needs to be bright, and that is an appropriate use. We need to redeploy the Greater Cleveland RTA police from arresting fare evasion and focus on just the general safety of the shelters and the routes that RTA runs.
I think it's important that the next mayor work with RTA's leadership and also suburban mayors as well to make sure there's equity and parity at the quality of every transit facility and site we have throughout the county. And because when you see the quality of a Westlake bus stop versus an east side of Cleveland bus stop, there's a lot of disparity there.
Yes.
There you go.
And so the mayor has to set the tone in Cleveland, but also working with our suburban mayors as well to make sure there's parity. And this is where we can work with the county executive too to make sure there's equity around this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So, my question is for, so you said that the parking meters wouldn't like donate that much money to the RTA fund. What do you say would be a good thing to do to donate that money? Is the question.
I think I understand.
Yeah. Alternatives to the park.
Alternatives to the parking meter. Solution, right? Is that the question? Okay. As a mayor of the city of Cleveland, my first job has to be to protect the general fund. Now, right now, the city of Cleveland, because of another reason, actually has unencumbered cash, but generally we don't. We've gone years that I've been the chair of finance committee for over 10 years now, and there have been years when budgets have been very lean and we can barely fund the operations that we have. The solution isn't at the city of Cleveland to better fund RTA. The solution is at the state level, and if it's a matter of whether the citizens of Cuyahoga County want to make the decision to raise fares, that's where the solution is. The city's general fund is not the solution to RTA, and I wish it were. I wish it were so flush with cash that we could donate to RTA and also fund everything that all the needs of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. But it's not. We've got to use the fund for what it's for. So I believe the answer is at the state or county level.
So I think the big difference here is I have an expansive view of what a powerful mayor can do to solve these issues, not only locally, but regionally. And now, will maximizing our revenue by having smart parking meters solve the problem? No, I'm not suggesting that. But it's one idea to explore to address this immediate pain point that's facing our residents. We should also take a look at what Cincinnati did. The mayor there worked with community activists to pass a comprehensive transit levy, and Cincinnati is booming right now. They're making the right investment decisions, and so we need to be bold. We need to think outside the box. What has not thinking outside the box gotten us over the last 16 years? The status quo, right? We can't afford more of the same. And I'm willing to take risks and be creative, right? Because the more of the same will not work in this moment right now in our city.
Let's go next.
Okay. Question. I have two-parter anyway. One is, there's 508 million, I believe 3 million went someplace else, that, as mayor of Cleveland, what would you do with the money? Both of you all. And the other question is, I want to be on the RTA board. I'm a union member and Ohio Poor People's Campaign member. So.
All right, well, those are some of the qualifications. Okay, so what would you do with the windfall allegedly?
It's 508 million.
I got 4 priorities. Number one, the first thing I would have done is try to leverage that $511 million to a couple of billion long term. But my 4 priorities are this. Number one, direct neighborhood investments, particularly in the east side of the city, because they've been struggling for far too long. Number 2, public safety, particularly fully funding violence interrupter programs across the city of Cleveland. Thirdly, what I'm calling City Hall 2.0, modernizing City Hall for the 21st century so we can get this economy going again. And then fourthly, what I'm calling transformative investments, digital divide, and finally eradicating the lead paint crisis, because it truly is probably going to be number 1 in the city. Those are my 4 big buckets.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have to remember that of these buckets, there has to be a relationship to COVID. It's got to be for COVID relief. So we need to start with revenue recovery. All the money that's been lost during this time, we've got to recover that. That's just got to be the first thing we do. Second, we need to look at public safety. We need to look at funding technology, cameras, all those things to deal with this surge in violent crime that we have. Fourth bucket is housing. And underneath housing is demo. We need to take down these vacant abandoned houses that are causing blight, that are nothing but an eyesore to our neighborhood. Right now is the opportunity to do that. We need to remove blight. We need to make money available, just like we did to seniors for the age-friendly home investment program, that if their house is out of code, we need to make funds available that they can fix their roof, they can paint their house, they can fix their porch, they can put a new sidewalk in, whatever it takes to keep that house within code of the city of Cleveland. And finally is broadband access. No, it's not quite finally. First is food insecurity. The number of people that have become food insecure, we need to support the food bank, which we have already started. we need to support the Hunger Network, and we need to support broadband access, which we put $20 million to really leverage other dollars that are available within the community at the state level, at the foundation level.
Okay, we have
Okay, we've got just a little bit more time. We'll take two more questions. Looks like there's one here and then the one
Brian, can
down.
we do three? I got three people on. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll do three then, but let's make it quick because we know that people have other items to attend to this evening.
Isn't the only thing going on?
Akshay! Freebie, Indianapolis is giving free bus passes to vaccinated workers, riders, anybody who's vaccinated, they're getting free bus passes as an incentive to make sure that the vaccinated are being supported, as well as incentives for people getting vaccinated. So that's something being done with ARP funds out there. My question is related to federal funds. Clevelanders for Public Transit's been deeply involved in a campaign for federal funding. The last major time that we had an issue around federal funds was when Public Square was closed and we jeopardized $174 million of FTA funds. One of the only members of council who stood up against it is standing over here. The other was Jeff Johnson. As mayor, how would you make sure that you are supporting RTA and getting federal funds like they've done with Tiger Grants for Little Italy or otherwise, rather than being part of the silent majority who've allowed federal funds to be jeopardized by the city?
Thank you. First off, the mayor will be a partner. I will be a partner in terms of getting the Tiger Grants, getting the federal dollars through to Cleveland. That's part of the mayor's job. I've done so with the metro parks. I was instrumental in helping them get a Tiger Grant that really did transformative things in the city of Cleveland. But I think your question is specific to Public Square. And let me say this, Public Square didn't need to reach the level that it did. It didn't need to reach the level of animosity. It didn't need to reach the level where we ended up just putting the Jersey barriers up and really kind of denigrated what was once a beautiful public space. This community invested $50 million in a beautiful city public square. And I believe that there is a solution. There was a compromise. There was a way to close it during certain hours and keep it open for bus traffic during high traffic times. There was a solution out there. We missed the opportunity, and I still think that we can find that solution. But going forward, we need to remember something. Those Jersey barriers cause damage. We're not going to be able to just remove them and think that the street underneath them is not damaged. We're not just going to remove them without understanding that the infrastructure that this community put $50 million towards is not somehow damaged.
Why didn't we hear that in 2017?
I'm sorry?
Why didn't we hear that in 2017?
Exactly right. We didn't hear nothing like that.
It's not a council decision. We didn't pass an ordinance to put Jersey barriers on. It's something that we need to understand that we have too much spent, we have too much invested to walk away from Public Square and not have. I used to bring my kids there to play in the fountains, to play on the colorful bugs. At one point, it was great. We loved it. But since the Jersey barriers went up, it's just a different vibe. It's just not as enjoyable. It's a different experience.
I'll say this, it wouldn't take me year after year after year to get a solution on this if I was council president.
Hello.
I believe that the mayor needs to have a critical, integrated, hands-on, active relationship with RTA, because the success of RTA is critical to the success of the city long-term. And as mayor, I'm going to work with the U.S. Conference of Mayors to make sure cities like Cleveland is getting its fair share of transit investment dollars. We got to work with our federal delegation as well to make sure we have a comprehensive strategy around this, because without a thriving RTA, we can't have a thriving region and thriving city long-term. It is a critical part of the conversation.
And just a response is, if you're a council president, I don't know if you understand the difference between the executive and legislative branch, but as council president, there is not something that the legislative branch did to make that happen. It is something that was an administrative act, it was a traffic issue, and it was not something that council signed off on. The legislative branch of the government, we authorize money, we authorize programs, we make sure that the funds are in place to do what we need to do. If I were the mayor, it would have been done by now, but I'm not the mayor yet.
Okay, we've got a couple more questions.
Going to be quiet.
Yeah, I personally see that historic preservation and green space are important to Cleveland as a place, so it's a place people want to visit and want to live. What are your plans for that?
Excellent question. The most important thing that we can do is we need to make sure that every Clevelander lives within a 10-minute walk of the park. We also need to invest in our tree canopy. Our tree canopy is at 19% right now, and we have a goal of 33, but we're going in the wrong direction. We need to make sure that everybody understands that tree canopy, there was once a time when it was a theory that this was good for public health. It's now well-settled science that tree canopy is good for air quality, it's good for people's mental health, it's good for people's overall health. But we have to make sure that we can't just preserve green spaces anymore, we have to create them. And right now, with the amount of vacant and abandoned land that we have that opportunity. We have to commit to it. I committed $10 million to our tree canopy to match a $5 million commitment from the county, and now we're looking for philanthropic support to get our tree canopy where it is. We have to make sure that we are not just allowing the trend to continue, because we're at 19 right now, and surprisingly, even the metro parks are losing tree canopy.
I think one thing to think about here is the importance of our zoning code. We still have an outdated zoning code in the city of Cleveland. We need real urgent leadership to have a reform-based zoning code that prioritizes preservation, prioritizes green spaces, and equitable development. And I think that's one major carrot and one proactive tool we can use to make sure we preserve the historic assets we have in this great city we call home.
Okay, we've got time for one more question.
Hi there, this is off subject, but what are your plans to address utility shut-offs, and would you commit to enacting a moratorium should you be elected?
Thank you for the brief question.
Utility moratoriums, we put one in place during, is that a Packers hat?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Oh, Dave. Well, we can work with that. The city of Cleveland put in place a utility moratorium during COVID because we knew people were hurting. The danger of putting in place a permanent moratorium or stopping utility shutoffs is that most of the people that are not paying aren't the homeowners. It's the slum landlords. It's the people that live in the community don't live in the community, that are profiting from the community, that if they see that, it becomes a business decision for them not to shut off. We saw that during COVID. We saw the people that requested relief, and we saw the people that didn't request relief. And it is, we cannot, as a utility, with the,
people died last year. 7 Clevelanders died last year.
so with the challenges of running utilities, which are enterprise funds, to make sure that people continue to have power, continue to have water, is crucial. There are several types of programs that help low-income individuals, and there's payment plans that can happen. But if we can't abandon the option entirely of shut-off, I cannot commit to that anymore.
7 people died.
This is where I think we need more creative action on how we can keep people alive and in their homes when a crisis like COVID-19 happens. One thing that I would explore is if you can't pay anything, then is there an opportunity for us just to pause it that will allow you to stay in your home, and then when you get back on your feet, have a forgivable grant or forgivable loan that will allow you to do that. You know, I'm working on this project right now in my day job in Spokane, Washington. We're working with one of the largest utilities in the country to say, how do we better support low-income customers where we can help them stay in their home, but also it doesn't undermine the business of that utility as well. The other thing I would say is this: we do a terrible job in the city of connecting people to the programs that are available. There are so many information gaps, right? And so this is where having an active mayor, using the bully pulpit, and working with grassroots organizations matters in these moments, especially when you have something like COVID-19.
That's right.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you. That's it for the questions. We appreciate you all coming and that sort of thing. We certainly appreciate Mr. Bennett and Councilman Kelly showing up today, coming in front of us. you have other things that you're gonna need to run off to soon. So I'd like to thank you, but for the last minute, I'd like to get a word from our sponsor.
Thank you, thank you. Clevelanders for Public Transit is an all-volunteer organization. So I just want to give a shout out for everyone that helped put this event together tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you. And I'll coordinate the event. Where's Alex at? Is he in here? We had Joe and our MC Brian take the bus over with us. And we also had Terry walking around doing video as well. Terry! And Marvetta over here. Marvetta! You know, with the grassroots nature of this organization, we've put in so much volunteer effort to reopen Public Square to transit, right? That was a big deal, right? Can I get a hand, right? Okay. We helped lower the fares, reduce the cost of all-day passes were supposed to be $6 right now, so that would be crazy. That ain't right. So this is all the work of volunteers with Clevelanders for Public Transit. So I want to thank our current coordinating committee members, if I could give them a hand. I want to thank the candidates, Kevin Kelly again and Justin Bibb for your time. I'm going to put back on my bus-themed soundtrack. I hope everyone will get a beer.
On that soundtrack.
Yeah, there's some good hits. Hang out, grab a beer. I'm going to give everyone a flyer about our next Riders meeting. It's going to be on Monday, October 25th on Zoom at 6 o'clock. I hope to see every one of you there, and I want to thank every one of you for coming out tonight. Give yourselves a hand. Yeah.